Hello, everyone. This is Coach Aaron Saft on the Running is Life podcast. And today I recorded a session I did with my team. Each Wednesday night, I record with my team, and we do kind of a session. And I had one of the team members ask if anybody had a spreadsheet for a packing list. So I kind of remembered that I had one, and I've done so many episodes now. I don't remember if I went over this, but felt it pertinent that enough that I could add on some stuff, and perhaps some of my athletes could add into the conversation. So this was a Zoom recording that I did with my athletes, and I will attach the spreadsheet. Again, I'll create like a Google doc that I can share with you, and you can copy and paste and use at your leisure. Also going to include some of the episodes that I reference here for crew and pacers and drop bags and all that stuff. So I'll put all that into the show notes. So there's going to be a lot in the show notes. So please check out the show notes for a lot of additional resources, including the spreadsheet for packing list, okay, and things to do for your crew and pacers and etc. So that will all be there. So I'm gonna let the next piece be the conversation that I recorded, and then when that's done, I'll come back on and update you guys on everything that's going on. So I'll talk to you in a little bit. All right. So what to pack? Right. So I had a great question on our team's private Facebook group that says, anybody have a spreadsheet? And I started racking my brain, and I was like, I think I do. So I took a dive deep into my laptop, and I found this. I may have talked about this in the past on the podcast, or I may have talked about it with the team at some point, but I felt it's pretty prudent, especially for myself and Thomas, who's on this call right now, as we travel all over this great country of ours. So it has 5 different pages here, 5 different sheets. So for the podcast listeners, I am going to create a Google spreadsheet that you can use the link and go in there and copy and paste into your own workbook, and then use it. So not going to make it editable, obviously, but it'll be a resource for you that you can use as well. So look into the show notes, and this spreadsheet will be in there for you, because I know we're going on auditory here and you can't see everything. So as I go over things, like I said, there'll be a spreadsheet link in the show notes that you can use. Okay, so when I'm packing and I get everything packed and we're heading for the car, the first thing my wife says to me is, do you have your shoes? Every trip. So that's the first thing on my spreadsheet. I pack multiple pairs of shoes. I may have 2 pairs of my main shoes, and then I'll have up to 3 other pairs of shoes, just depending on the course, possible changes that I may not even know I need. Umstead, I really didn't think I was going to go through 4 pairs of shoes, but for some reason 3 pairs were just not working for me, so I went on to the 4th pair at Umstead. The least likely, of course, is to need a swap of shoes. Like I said, for whatever reason, 3 pairs just were not cutting it that day, so I went into a 4th. So it can't hurt. On the converse, I've been at races where I didn't have the right shoes. I just didn't pack the right shoes. I went more minimalistic, and I paid for it. I didn't have what I needed. So, if you can swing it, especially if you're flying, if you can swing it, try to, at least have a selection for yourself of shoes. My notes say the pair I will use, so my main pair, 2 extra pairs of the above shoe, so up to 2 extra pairs as just in cases. 1 pair half size up if you're doing a long ultra, right? So just in case of swelling. And then a pair for super muddy conditions. So it depends on the course, your conditions, traction, Western States. Obviously, Thomas and I had talked about we switch shoes based on traction and comfort. So, having those available to you, that's super important. So definitely be prepared with shoes. What goes along with shoes? Your socks. I pack a billion pairs of socks. Again, for any and every condition. I have dry max socks in case it's super wet. I'm a big fan of toe socks in Gingy or Exoskin. Great toe socks. They're always awesome. If you have problems with blistering, obviously it's good to have ones that have different placements of their seams, different cushioning levels. So, be prepared on your socks. I can't understate how much socks matter. So bring a ton of socks. I bring compression with me. Sure. I may have a light pair of half tights up to a mid-weight full tight, just depending on temperatures. So compression, when I say compression, that includes just like spandex tights. It doesn't necessarily need to be something that's totally restrictive, like a 2XU, or with some of our other brands that are escaping me right now. But it doesn't necessarily need to be like a compression. But just I'm thinking something tight. Reason being is, especially if it gets cooler, the tighter it is, the more it traps the heat next to your body. So that's it. It's a good insulating layer for when it gets colder. It's also a good layer for if its conditions are pretty humid and you have a high probability of chafing. It's a good way to prevent chafe, aside from having a great solve that you can rub in. So I always bring some type of compression with me. Running shorts, I typically, for the race itself, I pack 3 pairs, 2 pairs of my main style, the ones that I train in and run in all the time, and then one that is completely different, has seams elsewhere, just in case, my main one, for whatever reason on that given day, it starts rubbing me the wrong way and I just need to get out of it and get, a different seam placement. So 3 pairs, 2 of the main and 1 completely different. Running shirts, I bring a whole range of different weights, again, different types of seams, different thicknesses. So, I can't tell you at Bigfoot, oh my goodness, I can't even tell you how many different shirts I had and how many I went through. I changed shirts so many times. If you see pictures throughout the race, it's pretty much like a time slide of me changing shirts because I had a different shirt on all through the race. So tons of different shirts, as different possibilities. Rain jacket. So now with rain jacket, I prepare myself with 2. I have 2 different rain jackets. I have a lightweight one that's more, we'll say, water resistant, so that I can pack that one. It's pretty lightweight, but it does have some water resistancy. It's not tape seams necessarily, but it will provide warmth. And if it happens to kind of, mist or light rain, it's going to keep me dry enough. And then I have a full-fledged tape seam, waterproof jacket in case it decides to just rain bucket loads on you. So 2 different rain jackets always go into my bag now. So I will put, a note there, 2 different types. Other things, running hat and buff. Gloves, perhaps, depending on the conditions, the weather, the temperatures. But I typically have 2 to 3 running hats. The newest one in my collection is a bucket cap. I brought that to Western States, used it for the first 30, and then switched into more of a ball cap style. But I have 2 different types of ball cap styles that I like. So I bring those, and always just a plethora of buffs, because you can use those in multiple ways. If it's hot, it can be an ice bandana. If it's cold, it can go any which where, on your neck, over your head. It can be a hat. So it's like, it's such a multi-use piece that, having one on your person at all times, and then having a few with your crew that you can swap out if it gets dirty or wet or whatever. So bring plenty of buffs. Sunglasses, some people love to run in sunglasses. I always have them. I'm not a huge fan of running with them, but they are packed. Of course, your nutrition. And with my nutrition, what I tend to do is I buy little Tupperware bins that I can store my gels in, especially if I'm flying. That way I know the gels aren't going to get smushed, crushed, and explode in my bag. So I get kind of like almost like a shoebox size Tupperware box, and it's got the latches so it closes over the lid, and that way I know the lid's not going to pop off in transit as well. So it's great for when you're flying, and even if you're in the car, because a lot of times we tend to stack stuff on top of our bags and stuff. So if they're not out, if they're not out and individually packed and they're in your bag, like I said, it's good to have them in something secure. So your nutrition, whatever those needs are, we tend to overpack on nutrition when we go post race and look at all the nutrition that we didn't use. We know where we could save some weight in the future. So if you're flying, it's most likely a good time to think, am I overweight? And if so, am I bringing too much nutrition? Because that oftentimes can be a culprit. So far as hydration powders go, I have a note that I pack caffeinated as well as uncaffeinated. A lot of times that you get into the nighttime, it's nice to switch over to a caffeinated hydration mix. Make sure it's something that you've experimented with, as well as you can obviously have something nutritionally that has caffeine in it as well. So, having those options in your nutrition is also great. A good thing to also think about is if you are using drop bags, do you need individual packets, and how will you go about that? So do you need individual packets of your hydration mix? Is it something that you can buy, like the sticks, individual sticks, or are you going to put them in Ziploc bags? And if so, do you have those Ziploc bags, which is something we'll get to later in the list. All right. Next, headlamp and waist lamp. I'm a big proponent of using both, and I have backups of my headlamps. I also have headlamps for my family. So I pack a ton of different headlamps and an emergency headlamp as well. So I've got a super lightweight 250 lumen headlamp. I've talked about it in the past. Nightcore produced the NU25, and that light, with if you put a bungee cord onto it, it is super lightweight. I have a whole YouTube video on that online, but great piece. So having your headlamp, your waist lamp, and then your backup batteries. Now, I had an incident on my travels to Western States. I was going to bring a bag on board, and it had all of my lithium batteries in it. And so that's okay if it goes into the cabin. But if you check it, then that's not okay. You're not supposed to have lithium batteries in your check-in. And what happened was, when I was checking in at the front desk, it said, hey, do you want to check in any of your bags ahead of time? So you can kind of do your roller bags and check those in at the gate usually, but it asked ahead of time. And I didn't think about my batteries. They were in there. So when I got to the gate, I was like, oh man. So I told them, I said, hey, my batteries are in the bag that got checked by accident. Like, can you grab those and I'll just throw them in my my carry-on. When they went in there, for some reason, they felt there were too many batteries and they confiscated all of them, even though I was just going to put them in my carry-on. So be real careful and cognizant of where those lithium batteries are. Usually, if you're carrying it on your person, you'll have no problem going through security. Okay. If you're going to do music, do you have MP3 player or your phone, headphones, all that good stuff? Make sure you've got your charging cords for all of this stuff, for all batteries, for your watch especially. So your watch cord, your headlamp battery cords, your headphone cords if you need it. So make sure you've got all the charging cords that you need. So I also bring power supplies, so little battery packs that I can throw in, especially if it's a longer race. So I can charge, whatever device it may be. Maybe it's my phone, maybe it's my watch, whatever. So having a power supply, a little battery charger, that's great. And then again, reinforcing, have the capacity to have those charging cords. So if you're going to have, that battery and you're going to need to charge something, make sure that when you're racing, you have the cords you need as well. Your watch, obviously that usually doesn't leave your wrist, but if you're using a different watch, your watch and charging cord for that. Your pack. Now, I've gone so far as to take 2 of the same packs to races now. I had a race where my main pack broke and I had to jimmy rig it with my safety pins from my race bib. So I had like one pin in my race bib holding on to, my race bib, and then I used three to, get my pack so that I could keep wearing it. So with that happening, I bought two of the same packs now so that I have a backup. So when I pack, I make sure I have two of my packs. And usually the primary one, the one I'm planning on using, is going to go in my carry-on. So my carry-on, I typically carry my race shoes, the shorts that I'm going to run in, the shirt that I'm going to run in, my pack, and then I try to bring my headlamp, the main things that I'm going to need for the race. That way I know if my bag doesn't make it, at least I've got the main things. All I'll need to really get is some nutritional things. So the main things I'm going to use, they're all going into my carry-on. So I have it on my person. But yeah, you're packing your poles. So, make sure you've got those. In longer races, as I've learned, poles break. So it's good to have a backup set. So, I've been in 2 races now where my poles have broken. Thankfully, the second time, was very late in the race and I didn't need to pick up my extra pair, but I had them there just in case. So having backup poles, if you can swing it, again, I know it's another expense, but especially in those longer races, it's, if those go down and you were relying on them, it's good to have a backup set. Ziploc bags, what I mentioned earlier, it's good to have multiple sizes. I usually bring a few gallon, a few quart, and a few of the snack size. I use those for different things. The gallon I may use to keep my hydration, powders dry in my pack. Quart size, I usually put my batteries in there. My extra batteries go into there, or my phone. And then snack is I just carry 1 or 2 of those with me for aid stations so that when I go into an aid station, they can fill it with something that I like from the table, and then off I go. I've also gotten into using the Ziploc has the larger storage size bags. I use the XL size for my drop bags, and you can throw duct tape on it, and it's waterproof. It's easy. It's got a handle. It's usually easy for the volunteers to spot. It's clear, so you can see everything that's in it. So that's what I've been using for my drop bags, but we'll get into drop bags in a bit. I usually have 2 colors of duct tape. Those are usually for my drop bags, but you never know when you're going to need duct tape. It's good to have with your crew. So I always pack some duct tape. A Sharpie for marking the bag, for your drop bags. Make sure you got a Sharpie with you. Extra safety pins. Again, just like in the scenario I talked about earlier, you never know when you're going to. So what I do now is that, I have my bib pinned on, but I also take 4 pins with me and I pin those to my pack. That way I always have safety pins on my pack at all times, just in case of emergency. I also carry a little bit of duct tape wrapped around. It may be anything. I may just have a pen that I wrap some duct tape around, or my battery stick. I just wrap some duct tape around it. That way I have some duct tape if I need it. A small container of your lube or solve, whatever you're going to use for your pack. That's something that I always carry when I'm racing, so I never want to forget that. I've started using a tent for my crew. It's a really easy pop-up tent. It's made by Quest. I bought it at Dick's for $89. It fits into a bag the size of a camp chair. It's super easy to use, super easy to pop up, super easy to take down. They don't have to do much, and it's got a floor built into it, like a tarp floor built into it. So it's tremendous. It's open on one side. So I really, I suggest that if your crew is going to be waiting at an aid station for a while, especially if it's sun exposure, they can get in there and take shade. And then when you get in there, you've got a place to go as well. Other things, blanket. So if you come into the aid station, you're cold. I just got the Rumple blanket, and that's kind of a puffy blanket, if you will. So if you picture like the Patagonia puffy jackets, Rumple, RUMPL, they make a puffy blanket, which is super warm. So grab that. It's great for your crews too if they're sitting there waiting for you. I do bring usually a camp chair. If my crew needs another one, I'll bring two, if I'm driving. Or, like what I did at Western States is we just went to a local grocery store, and I think it was like $10 for a camp chair. And then we just left it at the VRBO. But having a camp chair or two, it's great for not only you, but for your crew as well. A towel, whether it's going to be for a seat cover, for you getting changed, whatever it is, towels are great. So don't forget your towel. Sleeping pad. If you're getting into the tent and want to get changed and you don't want to sit right on the floor, or you've got young kids like myself, I bring sleeping pad. That way, if they want to take a nap, they can crash out with the rumple blanket. They're pretty much all set. So having a sleeping pad is great as well. So I'm just going to add camping chair here. All right. Those of you guys that are on here with me, anything that I forgot that we should add to this list? Can you think of anything? Try to be as comprehensive and thorough as I could. So if you guys think of anything, just, let me know. Just throw up your hand or speak out. All right.
Do you have the emergency blanket thingy?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll throw emergency blanket. And usually they require a whistle. That's usually on your pack, but if you don't, that's a great point. Emergency blanket and whistle. Thank you. Very good, Rabiel.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I usually, somewhere on my pack, I usually have some Band-Aids and some alcohol wipes because I figure I'll wipe out at some point.
Yeah. I think I have that, but we can certainly put that here. Band-Aids and how do I spell alcohol? Alcohol. I think it's that.
Yeah.
I think that's right. Alcohol. Yeah, alcohol. Band-Aids and alcohol. It's gonna be a good race. Alcohol wipes. All right, Band-Aid and alcohol wipes. So with my crew, I have the med kit, and a lot of that stuff is in the med kit, but that's good to have on your person. You're correct. Thank you, Nicole. All right. Anything else you guys think of? If anybody listens.
I don't know if it's something you think it would be good, but I actually have a friend that if they're calling for rain, she actually packs a trash bag to put like from her waist down.
Yep.
I don't know if that is really necessary.
Typically I have trash bag with my crew. We bring like 2 trash bags, that way they can throw trash in there, and then if we need it for anything else. But yeah, we can throw a trash bag on there. That's great.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty good idea.
Yeah, you can use it as a poncho if you don't have anything.
Yeah.
Pinch.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Cool. All right. Again, if you guys think of anything else, let me know. Let's move on to for crew. So we're moving on here. First thing for the crew, I like to make sure that I have the participant guide printed out. Now, this is something that I typically send out to them ahead of time to make sure they understand all of the rules. Usually directions are in there, but having it printed out, I just throw it into a binder or a folder for them and hand it to my crew chief, who's usually my wife, and say, here, this is everything. So usually it has, again, the rules, aid station list with crew accessible spots. My wife likes to drop pins at where the aid stations are. That way it's in her phone, and then she can just hit the pin and, drive to that location. A lot of races are really good about telling you exactly what the location is, so you can put that into your phone and create the pin itself without having to search the map and create the pin, or drive to that location and drop a pin. Just multiple ways to do it, but good to have those saved on your phone and then share those with other crew members, especially if there's going to be 2 vehicles. If there's going to be 2 vehicles, again, good to have 2 crew manuals so everybody has everything from the race. Yep. Okay. Things I like to tell my crew, so things I share with my crew is how much powder to mix with water in your bottles or your bladder. Everybody likes a different kind of concentration, right? So sharing with them, okay, so I've got a 2-liter bladder, I want 7 scoops of this, or I need 2 scoops in every bottle, right? So tell them exactly what you want. Share your nutrition plan, basic idea of what you want to do. Some people have entire spreadsheets of what their plan is. Make sure you share that with your crew so that they're checking on you when you get into your aid station. You said you were going to have 5 gels during this. Let me see 5 wrappers, right? So they're asking you for your trash and counting out your calories, making sure you're keeping up with things, right? So share what your plan is so they know when you come in, they should be checking for those things, right? And then kind of keep up and say, hey, you're kind of falling behind. Are you okay? Do you need to change something? So they can be proactive as well. Okay. And that leads into what I was just saying, a reminder to grab your trash. That's a good way to check your calories, right? And how well you're hydrating as well. Give them assignments, right? Let them know what jobs you want them to fulfill. Otherwise, like a lot of times there's multiple people and they're kind of bumping into each other because, they're not sure, who's doing what. So if you assign them specific tasks, then they're like, this is what I need to take care of when Aaron gets in, right? So, having like Western States, it was like, I want, this person on ice. I want this person on my nutrition, this person on my hydration. I want this person letting me know what's the distance to the next aid station, how much climb, how much time should I expect? So, giving them specific tasks. That way, when you get in there, everybody's got their role, they're zoned in. And then, you have like your runner that can run and grab stuff for you too. So, giving them these tasks, they feel like they have a job, and then, they're not working over each other, duplicating each other, or forgetting something, right? So make sure you give assignments. Give them a supply list of what you intend on packing, right? Like what's in your gear bag, right? So, that way they know, his shirt's in there, but his hat's in over there, or, his gels are in this box, but his shoes are in this box, right? So give them a supply list and let them know specifically what the container or bag they'll be in. Okay. Medical kit. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier. I did a whole podcast episode on what to have in a medical kit. So you can go back and check that out. I did it as a YouTube video as well, so you can see everything that I put in my medical kit. Quickly, Vaseline or A&D ointment, antibiotic ointment, Band-Aids of various sizes, a safety pin or needle, using for blisters, make sure it's sterilized, matches to sterilize the needle, or alcohol wipes, rock tape, kinesio tape, whatever, Leuco tape, whatever, brand you so choose, athletic tape. This is, it's a little bit different, right? A little bit less stretchy. So athletic tape, duct tape we talked about earlier, scissors, Tums, ace bandages, and ice packs. Again, this is just a simple list. If you, again, go into that YouTube video, I go more in depth of the things that are really in my physical medical bag, but just some things to think on and make sure that you have basic needs for your medical kit. Crew and pacers, make sure that they share with each other their contacts, right? When you're creating everything, make sure everybody has each other's emails so they can communicate to one another, just so you're not creating every email. And then, share with each other the phone numbers. You create the group text, and then that way they have each other and they can put it into their phones and they can text each other, especially as the race is going on. I go back to looking at some of my pacers texts that they were texting each other without including me. And I could tell, the level of nervousness was getting more and more as the race was going on. So, it's good if they have their own thread going so they can talk to one another. I like to give gas gift cards if my pacers are driving to the event, or if my crew are driving to the event, or Visa gift card, so that they can get little things on their own. But just having some kind of gift card for them as just a way of saying thank you, and that way they don't have to spend a ton of their own money in the process. And then, of course, usually race morning, I kind of hand them over, here's my gear bag, here's my nutrition stuff. So, having that specific bag. What we began doing is a lot of the aid stations where we go requires hike-ins. So we bring a hiking pack, not like a full huge hiking pack, but like a day pack. You know, that way they can stuff that with whatever I may need and then hike in. You know, they're not trying to lug a ton of big bags and boxes and stuff like that. They can just throw it all into a day pack. So I'm gonna add day pack here. All right, so that's a lot of the stuff that, you know, will be for you, you know, during the race. Now for the crews themselves, make sure they have the drop pins, make sure they have the rules, make sure they understand parking regulations. A lot of the races have very limited parking, and they say, you know, you need to park here. You can only have one car. Make sure they understand all of the rules of parking. I mean, that's vital to a race, because if we goof up, you know, we being us and our crews, if we mess up during a race, it can cost the race, you know, tremendously, especially if they're being audited by the National Forest. You know, they can, you know, not give the permit to the race the next, you know, the next year based on what happens during the race. So we want to follow every rule we can to a T. You know, if it says crews can't go to this aid station, there's probably a really good reason why. And if you do and you break that rule and then it costs the race, that falls back on us, you know. So it doesn't look good if we're not following the rules. So make sure they understand the importance of the rules, because you know, sometimes the race will just disqualify you. So we don't want any of that, right? So please be attentive to the race rules. You know, let them know, you know, there's, like I was just saying, sometimes there's only one car. So if you have two cars that are going through the race, and you know, both want to go to a location, but it only allows one car, make sure you know which car is going to be there. Okay. Number of people allowed at the aid station. Sometimes there is a regulation to like how many crew members can access an aid station. So make sure you're paying attention to that. Is there a zone in which you can crew? Again, in the rules, sometimes it stipulates must be within 100 feet of the aid station. And usually they have that marked off, but make sure your crew understands that they can't give you any aid outside of that, or that could lead to disqualification to you. Make sure they understand your nutrition and hydration plan. What's the backup plan, right? What's the backup to the backup? What are your fallbacks, right? So make sure they understand all of that. Make sure they understand each of their roles, what you expect of them. You know, so you've given them a role, but have you told them precisely what you want and how to do it? If you're very particular with your ice bandana, tell them how particular you are and what you want precisely from the ice bandana, or how you want it wrapped around or tied around your neck. Okay. Scout out food and gas. A lot of the participant guides have been very good about, you know, telling you, okay, there's a gas station, you know, on the way to this aid station, but that's going to be the last one for a long time. Gas up here. So make sure they understand where they have access to gas and food, ice, etc., so that, you know, day of, you know, it's already in the plan. We're going to stop here because, I mean, you know, crews need to eat too. So make sure that they have their own plan for where they can access food and gas. Sleep plan. Do you have a sleep plan? Do you intend on taking a nap at some point? Okay. Make sure they have a sleep plan. You know, if you're going for a 30-hour race, it's great if they can get a few hours sleep. So, you know, make sure they know, okay, you know, here's the plan. Like, I'm going to be, you know, this aid station is going to take a little bit longer. So why don't you plan on taking a nap during this time? And then somebody else in the crew takes a nap during this time. So make sure that they have a nap plan as well, a sleep plan. Dropping off and picking up pacers. Races a lot of times don't want to have to worry about pacers, right? So if they stop at a point where like there's no pacer exchange and there's no crew pickup, like they have to have a plan for getting out of there. So make sure that the pacer understands when they stop, you know, they need to have a way out. So make sure it's crew accessible if it need to be, or you can leave a car there. You know, that's another thing. Like, you know, make sure it stipulates in the rules that you can leave a car, or a pacer can leave a car at a given aid station, because sometimes that's not the case. Okay, so again, just trying to follow the rules. Have an organizational plan, you know, for the car. Usually the day before, I'm going through the car with my crew saying, hey, you know, like, here's all the stuff we got. How do you want it situated? How can we, you know, get some of this in here now so that tomorrow morning we're not loading too much? So usually the day before, we're organizing the car, or at least creating space for where we want certain things to go. Okay. So far as crews go, I've got a few notes here for crews. Be flexible. That's the biggest thing. Things change on the fly in an ultra, especially. So be flexible, adapt, have an open mind, be creative, problem solve, just like we do as runners. The crew needs to be able to do the same thing. Stick to your role, right? So if your role is to do something specific, stick to that role unless the crew chief, asks you to do something specific. So stick to that unless, something changes and we have to adapt. Okay. If somebody goes down, then yeah, it's the crew chief's job to say, hey, listen, I need you guys to fulfill this role. If this person, suppose they had to leave or something like that, or let's say the crew chief had to leave, who's going to step up in that role, right? So, talking these things through before the race is a good thing. So everybody knows ahead of time. If someone's not doing their job, it's, make the crew chief aware that the job is not getting done, or they're not holding up their end of the bargain, or they're just not being a nice person. Let the crew chief be the person to kind of pull that person aside and say, hey, listen, we're here for the runner, right? Like, let's remember that, and let's make sure we're doing everything we can to make this a positive experience for everyone. Okay. Don't let the runner see any negativity amongst the crew. Like, the less negativity the runner sees, the better it is, because you don't want the runner leaving there worried about the crew. That's the last thing you want. So make sure the crew, even if they're faking it, fake that smile the best you can, because the runner does not need to have that on their mind when they leave the aid station. Ask up front from the runner, at what point is it okay to drop, and hold them to that, right? At what point are they comfortable with dropping? Because they're going to come in and say, I'm so tired, I'm just dropping. And if they told you, that they're going to say that and you're not allowed to let them drop, you can't let them drop. You need to pack up your stuff and leave without that runner. Give them some tough love, right? But understand at what point they really want to be pulled off that course. And, as I just said, tough love is okay. Observe the runner coming in. Right? Like, they're coming in and their pack is just white from all the chalk from their sweat. Ask them questions. Are you drinking enough? Are you getting in enough electrolytes? Right? Be observant. Look at them. Look at their hands. Are they getting swollen in their fingers? Okay. Observe these things. Are they peaked? Right? Like, check them out. Make sure they're okay. Like, let them sit for a moment and just kind of problem solve with them. Just, ask them probing questions. Don't just ask them, are you okay? Because, obviously a lot of times, no, they're not okay. So ask them specific questions, get deep dive into what can you get them to make them bounce back, right? So be specific with your questions. All right. So in being observant, you're looking at how much trash are they giving you? Again, counting calories and looking at that. How much fluid are you refilling? So how much are they drinking? Are their bottles still full? That means they're not drinking, unless they hit an aid station just a little while ago. But, if they haven't, be cognizant of how much they're drinking. Are they sleepy? Do they need caffeine? Should you switch over to, more caffeinated options? Is it mealtime? Did they need some extra calories, right? So is it around lunchtime? Is it around dinner time? When was the last time they had a big calorie dump? Are their shoes wet? Are their feet wet? Do they need to change out their shoes and their socks? Is the weather about to change, right? Should you give them any more gear? If they're going into the night, it could get cold. Do they have a base layer with them, or a jacket? Okay. Extra batteries for lamps. Is it getting dark? Is it time to give them their headlamp? Extra batteries. Okay. Deciding on crew members. This is the toughest part. You're deciding on people that, ultimately can save your race. Right? So, like, who are you comfortable with? Are you comfortable with your family being there? Like I knew when my mom came to Bigfoot, I love her. God knows I do. But like, I could not have her at every aid station. So, you can do it in doses, right? But like, know who is going to be there at each aid station, and, you're going to be great with them all the time. I knew my mom was going to worry too much. That's why I say that, because she is a worrier, and, being 200 miles in, she's going to worry. So it's okay to have family, but if you're going to worry about them too much, if you have small kids, especially, is that worth having them as crew members, right? So think about that. Pacer and crew members, are they replaceable when pacing, right? So I've had pacers go down, like they couldn't do their section. And so like, who's going to back them up? What's the plan in case they can't run? So it's oftentimes something they can discuss on the fly, them being adaptable, but it's a possibility. This is an intimate experience. Who do you want to share it with, right? Like this really means something to you. It doesn't mean something to them. Do they want to be that engaged and part of that experience? Are they okay with being in the woods? Are they okay with being in darkness? And are they okay being with the others that you have chosen, right? Are they people persons? So, think about these things when you're choosing your crew members. All right. Anything else in here that I missed, guys? All right. If you think anything again, just let me know. I'm going to move on to pacers. Pacers is a little bit quicker. This is more of a checklist for pacers, so they can kind of go through and check these off. Can pacers refuel at aid stations as well? So looking at the rules, are the pacers allowed to use the aid stations? So if they can, are they going to bring their own nutrition and hydration? Make sure that they have that stuff. Make sure that they have their pack, their vest, or their belt. Okay. Just kind of a checklist for them as well. Do they have these things? Do they have their bottles and bladder? Do they have their headlamp and waist lamp? Do they have shoes and extra shoes, socks and extra socks? Do they have running clothes and extras? Do they have clothes to change into after? Do they have sandals for after? Do they have food to eat while they're waiting to pace and for after they pace? Do they have their own lube or solve? And do they have everything that, because a lot of times we're starting to see races that have mandatory kits. And if they have a mandatory kit, a lot of times they're requiring the pacers to also carry that mandatory kit. So make sure you read through the rules. And if you have a mandatory kit, is it also necessary for the pacer? Does the pacer need to sign a waiver? Does the pacer need to register? These are all things to consider for the pacer. Okay. Anything there you guys can think of? I just added the waiver and registration. Okay. Moving on to logistics. Now, this list could probably be a mile long. I've just included some things that you can kind of check off as you do them. So these are things you would do prior to race day, probably months in advance, but just things you can think about. So have you reserved lodging? Based on the rules and aid stations, do you have enough vehicles to move your crew and pacers? So, oftentimes one vehicle is enough, but there are some races where you do need two vehicles. In order to make it to certain aid stations, you're going to need two vehicles because there's just not enough time for you to get between, aid station 1 and aid station 4, maybe. Right. So, make sure you've got enough vehicles and it's within the rules to do so. Printed and emailed race rules for crews. So have you given your rules to your crews? Have you emailed them that link or the participant guide? Same thing with the pacers. Make sure your pacers know the rules. Okay. Completed and submitted volunteer hours if necessary. A lot of races are requiring volunteer hours. So make sure you know when is that due by? What can you do in order to fulfill that obligation? Right. A lot of races are getting very specific about things you can do. So make sure you have that opportunity planned out in advance and well in advance of that deadline date, just in case something comes up and you can't do that so that you have time in order to fulfill that obligation. Some races are allowing you to just simply pay instead of, doing your volunteer hours. So that's an option as well. Perhaps you just don't have time or the opportunities to volunteer. So, look at what your options are. Printed course map and elevation profile. Not only is that good for you to kind of look over day in and day out, but it's good for especially your crew chief to have so that they can see, exactly where they're going and then, kind of be plotting it out. Again, dropping pins at aid stations for crew on Google Maps and sharing with crew. That's a huge thing. We've talked about that. Assigning the crew roles and tasks. Good to have a Zoom call with your crew and your pacers ahead of time and just kind of go over everything. A lot of my crew is just so used to it. I have the same crew pretty much time and time again. So they're just used to me and my quirky ways. But, if these people aren't familiar with you and what you do and what you expect, great to have a little Zoom call with them, like a month in advance of race. Just kind of go over all this stuff. Go through the rule book with them, make sure they understand all that stuff. Go over your expectations, go over your crew assignments, tell them exactly what they're going to do. That's a great time to do it. Maybe you do 2 Zoom calls if it's, taking up too much time, but, good to touch base with everybody. Emailed and reviewed expectations for crew and pacers. So, again, just communicate, be as communicative as you can. All right. Lastly, drop bags. Okay. So episode 30, back in episode 30, I did a whole episode on drop bags. I will try to link the medical bag episode, and then episode 30, I'll try to link that as well so that you can, go back and listen to those. I also did a whole episode for crews and for pacers. So I'll post those links as well if you want to go back and take a listen to those. So, a lot of times drop bags, we pack too much. So, pack what you need, or what you anticipate you'll need, but, you don't need to pack the kitchen sink here. Like, be sensible about how big your drop bag is and what you're packing in it. So, make sure, secondly, it's waterproofed, right? I talked about earlier using those Ziploc bags. Make sure it's waterproofed, because a lot of times, they get out to aid stations. Sometimes they're not under tents and it's just raining. So make sure it's waterproofed in some regard. Number 3, compartmentalize. And what I mean by that is, I like to, even within my big Ziploc bag, I Ziploc bag everything inside. So my nutrition is in its own Ziploc bag. My hydration is in another Ziploc bag. My socks are in another Ziploc bag. So I have Ziploc bags within my Ziploc bag, which means that everything is extra dry. But then I can just pull that stuff out and just drop it into my pack, rather than, kind of sifting through things and then repacking everything. I can kind of take it on the go and just be, packing as I get out of the aid station. Save yourself some time. Number 4, know what the aid stations will have. If you are packing, gels, and the aid station is going to have the very same exact gels, probably don't need those gels. Maybe you pack a few just in case they run out, but, at the same time, know what the aid station has. That way you're not duplicating. Add variety to each bag. So if you're putting the same thing in every drop bag, you're probably going to be sick by the time you get to your 4th drop bag. So create variety within your drop bag. Add different flavors, add different, tastes. Just make sure that it's different. Be it hydration flavor, be it gel flavor, whatever it may be. Add some variety to your drop bags. 6, know the course, weather, and expected ETA for specific gear, right? So, where might you need a shoe change? Where might you need a sock change? Where might you need a jacket or your headlamp? Know the course well enough and timing of where you'll be on the course, that if you're going to use your drop bags, that you place what's in it properly. And know the rules and restrictions. A lot of times there's rules and restrictions for how big a drop bag can be. As a former race director, I've seen some crazy things that people want to pass as drop bags. Know that these have to be transported. So, don't make them massive drop bags. Like I said, be sensible about how big your drop bags are, knowing that they have to be transported, and they're probably going to be thrown around a lot. So be careful with what you put in it. Because they could be squished when transport or thrown when when taken out. So be careful with what you put in there. Okay. All right, that's my spreadsheet. Anything from you all? Any comments or additions? Okay. Well,
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Raphael.
Is there a rule of thumb about how you're supposed to reward your pacers?
No, it's whatever you want to do. I typically try to do something from the race. At Hard Rock, I got each of my pacers an oil painting that was done by an artist of the Hard Rock course. At Western States, there was a Native American that did a painting of one of the areas of the course. It was a print, so I bought each of them the print. So I try to get them something that remembers the race, as a thank you, a token to remember the experience together. And then I typically, get a picture of all of us together, and then, I print that and put it in a frame and give it to them later on. Yeah. But, just something nice. There's no, there's no, no expectation. It's just, it's nice to recognize the fact that they made the sacrifice to be there and help. So, but
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
All right. So, hope you got a lot out of that. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. So I'm going to kind of just go over some things that are going on. Obviously, Vermont was canceled. That was the right decision by the race leadership. The conditions of the towns in and around Vermont where we were to race was just incredible. The flooding and destruction and devastation to the communities up there. My heart goes out to those folks, and there's multiple ways you can help and donate to those communities if you're in such a place. Just want to extend my appreciation to the race staff for doing the right thing. So that left us waiting to hear from the Grand Slam as to what we could do in replacing Vermont. We waited a little over a week. Sunday they announced that we could indeed use any 100-miler for the rest of the year to finish up our Grand Slam. We just needed the approval of the race to use their logo on our trophies, because our trophy has the logo of each race we ran. So, I reached out to Burning River, because Burning River said that we could run their race, and they gave us a discount, which was most generous. But for whatever reason, the race did not want to give the permission to use the logo. Which is fine. That's their choice. So left me trying to find another race. So I had announced that I was going to be running Burning River, but that news surfaced, and I had to find another race. And my thanks to Scotty Coomer at 10 Junk Miles. He allowed us to sign up for the Badger 100. So Thomas and I will be traveling up to Wisconsin next week. So we're racing Badger 100 on July 29th. Thomas and I will probably have an episode together. Thomas is doing the Grand Slam. He's done Old Dominion and Western States. Badger 100 will be his third 100, whereas this will be my second 100. He is not doing Leadville, so I will have 3 weeks from Badger to Leadville, and then 3 weeks after Leadville is Wasatch. So Thomas will finish his Grand Slam at Wasatch as well. So that's the plan. That's what we're up to. Craziness. I'm grateful again, to Badger 100 for being so amicable and allowing us to not only race but to use the logo so that we can keep going with our Grand Slam. Other things going on. Coaching has really picked up. We've got a number of new athletes as well as returning athletes. Next week, I'll be traveling to Wisconsin, so my communications will be limited. But if you have questions or want to talk about coaching, please do reach out, just understanding that I will be traveling and racing next week. So if my communications are delayed, that is the reason for it. I'm doing okay. Training's going okay. I'm feeling pretty good. We traveled up to Vermont and back, so a little bit tired from the travel, but overall I'm feeling pretty good, and I'm excited to run the Badger 100. So I've never run in Wisconsin, so we actually run in Wisconsin and Illinois. So yeah, that will be next week. And next week's episode, we'll probably, again, Thomas and I will kind of talk about Badger 100, and then we'll have a recap of Badger 100. So thank you guys for listening. Again, I hope this was a good resource for you. If you have any questions on it, again, reach out. Let me know. You can check out the new website, runningislife.run. All that's in the show notes. Some pretty cool stuff there. I'll be adding some new resources over the next couple of months, as well as a new piece to the business. I'll be doing some mentoring of coaches. A lot of coaches ask about programming and how to do programming, so I'm going to do a programming course. So it'll be individuals. It'll be done over Zoom. So stay tuned for that. That'll be on the website, but I'm not going to post that until after the Grand Slam is completed. So stay tuned for that. But again, thank you for being a part of the Running is Life podcast. Thank you guys for all of your support. My goodness, you guys have been incredible on social media, Strava, everywhere. I feel the love, and I thank you for it. It really is encouraging. I'm so glad, as I say in my post, I'm just so glad to be a part of this community. I'm so glad that a number of you reach out and share what you're up to, how you're doing. Encourage me. And in return, hope to encourage you. So thank you. Thank you for helping inspire me. I hope, you can find some motivation and some help and tools and things that we do in this podcast. And if you have suggestions, reach out. So thank you, my friends. And until next time, keep on running.